Everyone, one of the cool things about Savage Worlds is all the settings that are available. And I found another one I wanted to talk a little bit about. This one you get to be secret agents working for an agency just before World War II and during World War II. So you've got super science, you've got super villains, you've got Nazi technology, you've got all sorts of supernatural things all happening at the same time. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but I don't think it has to be. And it seems like it would be a lot of fun. So let's talk about the secret files of Section D. It's the Savage World. Strangers. Hey everyone, it's Carl again with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. Would really love some support so we could buy games. And fortunately, the publisher of this particular document I'm going through, the secret files of Section D, sent me a copy so I could talk about it. But I'd like to buy some other stuff. Come on. Help a guy out. Also, we have a podcast called Mastering the RPG. You might want to check that out as well on your favorite pod-catching application. So today, as I mentioned, I want to talk about the secret files of Section D. Now, this is a big book, about 230 pages, so I've got notes on my computer, so I'm going to be looking down often to take a look and make sure I don't miss anything important. So let's start off with the author of the book describes it as kind of a tongue-in-cheek secret agent setting. It's based on the concept that all that crazy phenomenon, that we think of as being fake is actually real. It's based on this concept of a secret organization that was watching the Nazis, was watching, supervillains create technology and all that good stuff. And so it's really kind of cool. And I think it would be useful for any kind of secret agent game, not just tongue-in-cheek, but there's obviously elements of it when you talk about things like, you have super villains who've got kind of superpower type things and super weapons, and they might be crazy. And so I get that would be more of a good old-fashioned pulp, get in there and take them out kind of scenario. So that would be a lot of fun. So let's talk about what's in the book. I'm going to do a walkthrough. This isn't a review. Normally, if Eric and I get together, we do big reviews of books, but this is a walkthrough. And so I just want to describe all the cool stuff that's in the book that you might find useful, whether it's within a secret agent campaign, within the setting they provide, or using it in some of your other settings or other games. Okay, so let's start with some of the new setting rules before we get into things like character creation. So I'm walking a little bit through the way the book puts it together, and this is the order they go through. So they start off all characters at season because they get some advances through their previous career before they get taken to agency. Pretty standard concept to help make your player character a little more robust at the beginning of the game. They have a setting rule called Blaze of Glory, which is pretty neat, at least conceptually. I haven't played it, but the idea is if a character gets incapacitated, they can go out in a Blaze of Glory, which is they get a Benny and they have half of their vigor or spirit in actions. And as soon as they're done with those actions, they're out. They're dead. So it's kind of like that last hurrah when you're about to go down anyway. You can go out in a blaze of glory instead of hoping someone will heal you or whatever, and just kind of take it all and just basically say this character's done, but look at what he could do on the way out. Something that takes place in a lot of games. A lot of people do that, but they've added a little bit of mechanic for you to leverage. The second one that I thought was kind of interesting is they call Buck the Bennies. So you'll get bennies when you defeat a foe equal to greater than number of characters. So the idea there is, again, it's pulpy. You gain bennies, and then you can spend them to do crazy stuff later. One of the items I thought was kind of nice as well is they called it Hollywood Guns. Ammo tracking, everybody hates doing it. Well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people hate doing it. And in this game, it's, again, pulpy agent stuff, and so you don't want to maybe track ammo exactly. So the Hollywood Guns, they assume the characters have, they're reloading as they're necessary. They got enough shells to do what they need. But if they get a shooting die of 1 and it's a straight miss, that means they ran out, and then they need to spend that action to reload. So right at a critical moment, you might fail that in that way, and then you got to spend an action trying to reload. But otherwise, you're running around shooting, taking care of things. Now, is that going to make people using automatic weapons a little more overpowered? I don't know. Being a shooter, I don't mind if it does. uh, Another interesting thing that they add to kind of the setting, and it's really good for the flavor of the kind of game they're running, is cryptography. There's a big section on cryptography, and there's a skill for it that takes over from hacking. And there's a bunch of information there on the kinds of the types of cryptography, whether it's a cipher, whether it's a machine, what it takes to break those ciphers. And so that's kind of I think that's a big part of that sort of game, is can you decipher the clue fast enough? Can you get the right, steal the Enigma machine so that you can figure things out before something happens, the bad guys, before their plan goes into effect. So it's a big part of the game. And so they add a section on that. Another interesting thing that they have as part of their setting rules is a thing called a cliffhanger. Their take on the cliffhanger is it's basically a quick encounter, but the idea is the players agree with the game master to allow something essentially kind of bad to happen to the players. They get captured, or they fall behind enemy lines, and now they're trying to get out before something bad happens. And what it does is allows the GM to set up what the author calls a no-win situation, which might be like they get captured, but one person gets away, and so their plan can now get put in effect. And each player describes what they do. The book gives some examples of, there's a couple of interesting things about it. Since it's pulpy, the bad guys don't stick around. So that it's kind of like they set the trap, they set the snare, the classic, we're going to put you in the pool full of the sharks with lasers. What are you going to do? And now the players narrate through flashbacks what they did to get to the point where they can do this role for this dramatic task. Or I should say quick encounters. I'm sorry. It's not a dramatic task. It's a quick encounter. So they get to the point where they can do their role. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I don't think it adds a lot to what you might do with a quick encounter anyway. I think the interesting parts is it's played through flashbacks, and it's really geared towards sort of that captured, or like they said, a no-win situation, and the players buying into doing that as part of the game. Demolitions is another part from a setting rule. Another big part of the game. There's several pages on the kind of explosives, how you set, how they detonate, how you disarm. Obviously, behind enemy lines, or your secret organization trying to infiltrate, maybe blow up a super weapon, what have you. So it's kind of a big deal in the setting again. What's nice is, you can take these out and maybe apply them, things like cliffhangers or the demolitions, or some of the other setting rules, and you can use them in any other game. I especially think the demolitions and the cryptography rules, maybe you turn those into hacking rules or something like that, seem like they'd be pretty useful in other games. Then the book jumps into character creation. Like I mentioned, characters start at seasoned. Cryptography replaces the hacking skill. There's 9 new hindrances, all for the most part, they really do add to the flavor. So, for example, there's one called Before You Die, which is where you want to tell the enemy your plan when you're in a bad position. So you're to end up being the one monologuing. Another one is Stay on Target, for example. So this one says you're so focused on the mission that it may negatively impact the team. Great hindrance, right? So when you have a choice between helping the team or keeping the mission on track, you're going to take mission on track. Game Master, great chance to push those players, give them a Benny, but that looks like that'd be a fun hindrance to just have the party get completely messed with. Edges, I counted, and I might have counted wrong, but there's like 30 of them. A lot of them add flavor. A lot of them, there's probably too many edges. I bet I didn't go through every one, fine-tooth comb. I bet there's some that are kind of duplicating what you might have been able to do through kind of reskinning the ones in the main book or in the core book, but that's cool. You got 30 edges to play with. There are some interesting ones that I looked at and I immediately said, well, that's cool. I like that one. For example, Sniper. And sniper is you get something called Overwatch. And Overwatch allows you to shoot at a target without interrupting first, but at a -2. So that person's running and they're about to shoot. So instead of having to take and interrupt their action, so you can take that shot while they're visible, Overwatch just means you're ready to do it. So I thought that was pretty cool, to be honest. Another one that I thought was like great, I like this one, is Debunker. This is where somebody who understands science so well that they can create a plausible argument, baffle their opponents by just coming up with technobabble. I mean, I feel like a lot of Starfleet engineers have this edge in particular, but I thought that was pretty neat. So I mean, those are like just pulled a couple out, but there's a lot there in the book. So you're getting a lot of edges for your money. Another item as you're creating characters is from an arcane background. They have gifted, miracles, psionics, and weird science, and that's what they have from a player standpoint. There's really only one new power, and that's called Unlock, but otherwise it's the powers from the main book. Big part of their magic is artifacts. So there's sections on how do you create an artifact, what do they look like, do they come from, the supervillains may have it, that sort of thing. So artifacts is a big part of this game. Players can't create artifacts. They get created by NPCs kind of off screen in a sense. Big section on creating these items of power. A nice addition is a section that has example player characters that are ready to mostly go. Just they describe some things that you can add in and make them happen. So the archetypes, just pick one out. It'll say, for example, pick 2 edges or pick 1 additional edge or add a hindrance or do something, but they're almost ready to go. And so that's really cool if you just need a good starting point, because there's a lot here, and there's a lot of different roles that, in the secret agent world, people can take. And so there's a big section on that, which was pretty cool, I thought. There's definitely a robust equipment section. There's a lot of stuff in there, all very much, again, linked to the fact that this takes place just before World War II, like 1938, 39, and during World War II. So interesting stuff there. It's robust. It's kind of cool that they have some obvious ones, but they've got pictures of every armament that they have in the book. So every rifle, every pistol. I think that's kind of nice. I know Savage Worlds really isn't about kind of that gear porn, but I think it's pretty cool to have some of that. Then they talk about super science. This is where, again, creating items where bad guys or your own what they call boffins within your Q division, they may create this super science items. What's interesting about them is they simulate powers, but they are not magical. So they're not going to be impacted by things that impact magic, but they have effects that seem like magic. But otherwise, they truly are a device. As we talk about equipment and things like that, they move into the concept of concealment. So another big section on what is it, how do you do the mechanics around concealing items? Things like, that hollowed out book, or the fact that we put a Tommy gun in a violin case. How do you conceal items? And so there's a section on concealment rating, or defining a concealment rating based on how much work you do to get ready and what do you do. And then there's another flip side as to how well you can detect that somebody's got something concealed. Again, a very big part of those secret agent old school films where people are passing things or they're hiding things, and a player character just noticing out of the corner of their eye that looks like that person has something that they're concealing, and that means something. So it definitely adds flavor. So it's nice to have that section. Can you get away with just normal notice and let the players role play out how they hide things and then add a bonus? Probably, but the book adds some mechanics, which makes it kind of nice. Then it gets to a point where it talks about the agent guide. The agent guide has a ton of material. Now, this is where the book gets into the setting, and it is I mentioned it was a 230-page book. It's big, and this is a rich. I mean, it talks about everybody who's involved in this world war, talks about their military, talks about their organizations, talk about what's going on, how they think, what they're doing as part of this era, whether it's U.S., Britain, USSR, Germany, other factions going on. So there's a lot of stuff. And this is things that the agents are supposed to know, but honestly, your players aren't going to read this section. So as a game master, you're going to need to be really good at understanding this material. If you want to run the setting as is, understanding the material and then feeding it to the characters in a way that says, "Oh yeah, you would know this." "Oh yeah, this German society exists and they've been doing this sort of thing, and this is understood through the agency intelligence network or something." Even if the players don't know it themselves because they haven't read that section, very easy to feed that through, "Oh yeah, the intelligence network, this is information you should have." But it's very rich. There's a lot of material. I honestly, I didn't read it all. I read some of it and it was like, boy, they get into the details. And so if you're running this setting and you want to really immerse yourself, you absolutely can. There's a section on creating villains, whether they're just a villain or a master villain or super villain, what have you. It goes through and there's some randomization, but it also then adds some interesting powers that a super villain, a master villain, super villain, what have you, would have. They're called villainous powers. I hope I said that right. And these things are like doppelganger or endless resources or being an evil genius. So, those things that when you're going against the big bad evil guy, it's what really makes them the big bad. And so that's kind of cool. I thought that was pretty neat. Then they get into campaign types. And so they talk about, and this is a little bit more helping the game master do what he needs to do. And they start off with, they talk about the campaign types. There's really 3 suggestions. There's pulp, there's espionage, there's military. Pulp is probably its bread and butter. But like I said, I think you could run a straight espionage game, a serious one, maybe not one that takes place during the Cold War, but something more during the World War II era, unless you set aside a lot of that background and you kind of roll it forward with the proper weaponry, but you can use the setting rules that are really geared towards that pretty easily. So they go through the campaign types. They talk about the adventure design. They talk about story structure. So that's nice to have. It's not too much, but it's nice to have that section. And then the last part is the threats, naturally, and that's pretty robust as well. So it has a complete set of foes, ally characters that the player characters might encounter. This includes details on the military personnel around the globe, information on secret societies that you may run into. This area, that section definitely has secrets that the players should avoid. I think anything other than the agent guide, which talks about the background that the agents would have, probably should be off limit. Obviously some of the character creation stuff, sure, but anything that describes advanced weapons or super weapons or these different threats that the players may not really know about that could come out in the game, it would be sad if they read that. So don't read the monster manual, right? Isn't that like the rule? You just shouldn't read the monster manual anyway. So kind of a cool book. I enjoyed reading it. I thought layout was great. It definitely had that feel that they were trying to get across, this pulpy adventure, secret agent, globe trotting kind of thing, solving problems. They definitely got that flavor, and it was a good read. Again, I haven't played it, but there's a lot of interesting things in the book as far as setting rules that I think I might try to take advantage of. So anyway, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. Please support us so we can buy stuff like this instead of begging the folks to let us read it because it looked cool. So anyway, we'll catch you next time. And if you get a chance, listen to Mastering the RPG. And we'll talk to you later. Bye. It's a savage world. Strange as a wind war. It's It's a savage world. Classics to explore. It's a savage world.